Hello, my name's Dr. Elizabeth Scholefield, and I'm here today alongside a couple of my colleagues from the School of Education and Lifelong Learning here at the University of East Anglia. We'd like to spend a little bit of time to talk to you about what we think teaching might look like in 2035. We've prepared a short presentation for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you live for a live discussion later in the summer. So I'm just going to share a presentation with you, and then you'll hear from myself and a few of my colleagues about our thoughts. So being a teacher in 2035, what's it going to look like? You're going to hear from David on what we know up until now, so what we've seen in education up until now. And then my colleague Vicky is going to discuss what is likely to stay the same in education in 2035.
I'm going to start this slide by talking about what we know up to now. Now, I think it's important at this stage to kind of go backwards a little bit and think about the practice that's happened so far and how that's informed where we are now at this stage. So teaching practice kind of holistically is going to continue to change and continue to evolve. If you kind of think back to parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' time in schools, it's vastly different to what many of you, including myself, would have experienced as well. You know, speaking to grandparents and knowing that you know, punishment was issued in a very physical format, and the way that things were structured, not just in terms of the kind of whole school approach, but also individual subjects. You know, and again, being a practical person, when I think of the kind of PE provision that took place, you know, many years ago, it's vastly different now to not just the types of activities that pupils engage with, but certainly the way it's taught as well. I think it's going to be interesting how that continues to develop, and I think it's a very exciting time to be in education and see the changes that come in for young people and people working with young people as well. Flipping that slightly, there are people out there who say that kind of education or teaching practice is quite cyclical, so that actually we're just going to end up kind of going full circle. Now, some of that may be depending on the politics that are involved, and obviously different governments are likely to come and go in the future, and certainly by 2035 that is a possibility. So the question there I would ask, in terms of, will we just repeat what's already gone, or are we going to evolve into a different way of thinking? Is a different government going to come in, or is a government going to realign their thoughts? Are they going to develop things in a different way? One thing that I think will remain constant, and has done obviously in kind of decades preceding this talk now as well, is that examinations are going to remain the same. That's going to be the kind of benchmark, whether we look at kind of SATs, which may kind of evolve and adapt slightly, but they're still going to be examined in some format. And certainly pupils at GCSE at the end of Key Stage 4 are going to be assessed against a number of norms across a national platform. I think also as well that it's fairly obvious to state that pupils are going to complete each step. So it's going to be important that pupils go through each key stage. They are assessed in that manner, building up to kind of an end of school, an end of education experience, whether they then go on to work in apprenticeships, or whether they go on to complete some further study at sixth forms or other places as well. But certainly examinations are going to remain for the time being. One thing that I think is going to change or continue to evolve based on what we know at the moment is the importance of physical, mental and social well-being. We've certainly obviously been through the kind of pandemic the last couple of years, and I think that's something that's really come to the fore, and certainly with, you know, current statistics on obesity rates continuing to rise, I think physical health is going to be something that certainly the current government and any potential future governments really do push. And again, it's an obvious thing to state that, you know, people's mental health and well-being has certainly been something quite prominent of late as well. Something else which we kind of expect to see certainly evolve and certainly change in the curriculum by 2035 is kind of the theme of sustainability and around climate concerns, climate change, and hopefully climate action as well. This is something that obviously has been topical for a long time now, but I think it's really come to a head quite recently, and I think lots of these kind of global summits and actions are really going to have an impact. And again, it's almost certain that that's going to have an impact on school, whether they're on a sort of individual small level or whether they're quite big in terms of legislation stipulating that energy and sustainability have got to be something that schools consider. So I think that's again something that's going to be quite exciting to see in the times ahead. I'm now going to pass to my colleague Vicky, who's going to talk about things that might say the same as well.
Hello, I am Vicky Christoforatou and I am a lecturer in education. In the last 3 years, my main job has been to train secondary English teachers. But previously, I had been a secondary English teacher myself for over 20 years. And I am going to talk to you about what is likely to stay the same in education. There are a few things that I am confident will stay the same. The first one is the relationships between the teachers and their pupils. A teacher is not there just to help pupils learn and make progress. A teacher is there as a friend, somebody to talk to, a problem solver, a coach, life coach sometimes. And you will know already that the best teachers are people that you do not forget and you remember for many, many years. The second thing that will not change is the face-to-face interaction. So despite the level of technology that will become available in the next few years, the next few decades, I am confident that teaching will primarily be delivered in person, because that's the only way to build those relationships of trust and respect and emotional support that you cannot build in any other way. So it's great. Teachers and pupils will continue to have strong, lasting relationships, and they will interact in person rather than on any other remote platform. However, there are some negative things that I don't think will change. The first one, unfortunately, is exams. It will take a huge culture shift for exams not to be considered in this country the only way to evaluate pupils' performance, ability, skills. But the challenge is here for you to lead that change. Perhaps it will be your generation that will, kind of introduce much more, pupil-friendly ways to assess. So exams are here to stay, unfortunately. Another negative aspect of education that is not likely to change and has not changed all of those years I was in classrooms is chewing gum, and especially chewing gum under the desks. I have no idea why pupils will always stick the chewing gum that they want to discard under the desks. I have seen it in every school, in every classroom. I have in fact spent a lot of time trying to scrape the chewing gum underneath the desks. So be prepared for that part of teaching if you want to be in education in 2035. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'm going to allow Elizabeth to talk to you about some other exciting things in education. Thank you.
I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at what is likely to change. So if we think about what David and Vicky have discussed in terms of what we know and what is likely to stay the same. Let's look forward to what is likely to change. So what we see in education now and then what might change in future. So technology has fundamentally changed the way that we learn. And it's undeniable, without technology, you wouldn't be listening to us speak today. And while people may debate whether this change has been positive or negative, there's no denying that learning has changed significantly in the digital era. Just think of the progression from abacuses, those wooden abacuses that we used to use to count in maths, to smartphones, from chalkboards to using laptops or interactive whiteboards, from trawling through libraries, to simply searching Google in an instant. So in many ways, learning today barely resembles learning 50 years ago, perhaps in more of the practical elements of learning. So what will likely change in teaching and education? We think, some have imagined a future with no classrooms at all, where all children learn from home with maybe a machine as a teacher, and consider traditional school maybe more of an alien concept. But that particular future is really unlikely to come true. As much as AI, artificial intelligence, is growing and studying from home is becoming an increasingly popular solution, education really does still require some form of human contact. And technology, if we position it as a tool rather than a replacement. Even so, though, technology can reshape the design of the classroom and the core philosophies that of teaching and learning in fairly significant ways. And I'd like to just touch on a few of those with my time with you today. It is argued that the internet and technology are, continues to change habits and how we're thinking and how we remember specifically. After all, why would you waste precious brain power trying to memorize a phone number, for example, when you can store it in your phone instead? Why memorize the route for a road trip when Google Maps is always at your fingertips? Researchers have dubbed this phenomenon the external brain. So many experts conclude that young people now use the internet as their external brain. So in other words, they outsource certain memory tasks to the internet and other technologies. So this is fundamentally going to change the way, what we see in the classroom. We're also expecting, so according to a report in 2018 by the UN's International Telecommunications Union, 90% of the global population will have access to broadband internet services by 2050. So thanks to the growth of mobile devices and satellite internet services, we're going to see a global internet, a much more diverse and inclusive online experiences, so where resources are produced and shared from all areas of the world. So with this in mind, I think teaching will likely change to facilitate it. I think we're going to see more of a move from passive, so more of a passive to an active learning experience. So here, our access to these interactive technologies and a glut really of information means that we're no longer, as learners, content receptors, just merely taking notes down or listening to teachers talk for hours and hours without pause. Similarly, we're going to be looking at building multitask teaching strategies. They'll become a priority to account really for how our younger generations are working and learning now. I think we will see more of a move from individual learning to more collaborative learning, to take advantage of a transactive memory, to share information, where each member in a group of a working relationship becomes a specialist of some kind, and you can rely on one another for information. So this social, emotional process of learning, involving learners in getting to know each other and making that commitment to develop trust and belonging in a community and in the learning space. I think we will also see a change in more personalized, differentiated approaches to learning. Today's learners, we know, are digital natives. They're very comfortable with technology and in the digital space, born with a presence online, within and within ease of access. So they are accustomed to, getting information, meeting their needs with a click of a button in a very user-friendly, personal and customizable way. So I think future educators and teachers will have to face the fact that students, will need and want to learn in a more flexible, personalized format. For some, this may mean having a more technology-focused classroom. For others, it might be being more active, more hands-on in the classroom, more problem solving. But students will definitely want their learning experience to meet their interests, these time constraints and also academic needs. So maybe students will have more of a personalized learning plan for each student. Before we close, we just wanted to share our hopes and wishes with you all. So our hope is that education is available to all, to everyone, irrespective of background, and that young people are given the very best chance in life, that the best teachers are in the classroom, and that pupils continue to be driven to succeed. We hope and wish that physical, mental health and well-being are the driving forces, and that educational institutions have the resources and support and education structures in place to offer a supportive, collaborative learning experiences where individuals can share their success, celebrate success, and experience perhaps a failure, but without any fear of judgment. And so yes, and that access to support. And you've heard from David as well about this climate education, becoming that everybody buys into, for a very meaningful change to occur, in future generations. This need to act now in terms of the environment. And what we would love to hear when we meet in July or later in the summer is your hopes and wishes and what they will be. So perhaps have some thoughts on that before we do meet. We'd love to know what your hopes and wishes are for education in the future. So just some concluding thoughts. No doubt that teaching is extremely rewarding and also challenging. We know, through PGCE courses, the teacher training qualification here at UEA, that that those who have a passion to teach, having that accessibility to do so, to enroll and complete the training programs, and there are various options and various routes into teaching to allow that to become more accessible. But education is entwined with political aspects, and you heard from David about the cyclical practice. We know that much of educational practice is informed by governance, by policy, by the government's our thoughts and ideas. We know that there are many brilliant elements within teaching, and that the future is really exciting. And in terms of shaping the future and sort of education and the changes that could occur, it is exciting. But I suppose, will we see more of the same, or is there an opportunity for lots of change? As colleagues, we believe that there's probably going to be a combination of both, but it is no doubt that it will still be a career that impacts thousands of people, and that every teacher should be incredibly proud to do. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time today, and we will look forward to seeing you later in the summer. Thank you.